Today I'm going to be responding to Ashley's claim. In fact, her claim was the decisions of the owners, trainers, and veterinarians of the thoroughbred racing industry have detrimental effects on the health of the horses involved. Her secondary claims were that, one, the decisions of the caregivers of the thoroughbred racing industry to race or train in a hazardous track or health conditions leads to severe bone and ligament problems for the horses involved. Two, the caregivers in thoroughbred racing industries practice the condoned admission of unknown or poorly tested drugs that lead to negative side effects on varying systems of the horse's body. And her third one was the caregivers in thoroughbred race industries push horses past their natural limits and cause extreme physiological distress. My response to that is that while there's no doubt that some people abuse their horses, the real question is if this is the standard method of training and racing. Okay, so my response to her first secondary claim, which was, once again, the decisions of the caregivers of the thoroughbred racing industry to race or train in a hazardous track or health condition leads to severe bone and ligament problems for the horses involved. My first response to that is that caregivers of race horses are going to do everything in their power to keep the horse healthy. Otherwise, they're going to be losing a valuable asset. According to Jessica Rayo from CNBC, the average price of a thoroughbred horse is between $20,000 and $500,000 for a thoroughbred. My second response is that light training beginning at the age of 2 for the horses can be helpful rather than harmful for the horse. Increased bone mineral density means stronger bones, which would make the horse stronger as time progresses. A study was done to observe the bones of 2-year-old thoroughbred horses trained on racetracks. 7 trained horses were examined and compared to 7 untrained horses. According to the New Zealand Veterinary Journal, greater bone size in trained horses had the greatest effect on an index of bone strength, meaning that the greater the bone, the stronger the bone is, obviously. So my third response is that Ashley states that hazardous track conditions, which included potholes, uneven, rock scattered, or synthetic tracks, lead to severe bone and ligament problems for the horses involved. However, races are often canceled and when there are poor track conditions. Neither the owners of these horses nor the owners of the racing track would be willing to put the horse at risk, considering their profit depends on the health of the horses. According to the Equibase company, which provides reasons for horse race cancellations, there have been 38 cancellations due to weather and 11 cancellations due to track conditions between January 7, 2015 and February 16, 2015. Okay, my fourth response to her first secondary claim is that osteochondral disease is common in thoroughbred horses. While it is more common in horses that are constantly training and exercising, it is not a major risk on the horse's health. According to Kelsey Kuntz, a doctor in veterinary medicine, the treatment for osteochondral disease is simple. Allow the horse to rest for around 2 months or have the horse jog lightly for 4 to 6 weeks. This brings me to her secondary claim, which was the caregivers in thoroughbred racing industries practice the condoned admission of unknown or poorly tested drugs that lead to negative side effects on varying systems of the horse's body. Ashley brings up that caregivers allow unknown or poorly tested drugs to be put into the horse, and that these drugs have negative side effects on the horse's body. However, according to Pet Care RX, The two drugs that she names, Salix and Lasix, are legal. Therefore, these drugs have been tested thoroughly and are regarded as safe. She also mentions that these two drugs can cause other serious problems, but she does not expand on that. And while there may be some owners who do not care about their horse's health and only care about making an immediate profit, most would think logically about the future. By imposing a potential injury on the horse because of a steroid injection, the horse would be then out of racing for a longer time, and thus the owner would lose possible revenue. And then her third secondary claim was that the caregivers in thoroughbred race industries push horses past their natural limits and cause extreme physiological distress. I have three responses to that. My first is that Ashley gives a statistic that 5 out of 25 deaths are caused by heart attacks, and that Lasix and Salix play a part in the death. She has not given sufficient evidence to tie these two drugs to heart attacks in horses. Only 20% of deaths are a result of heart attacks, which could have been caused by other factors than the two drugs. My second response is that Sarah Christine Sammons from UC Davis wrote in Patterns of Humeral Fracture in Racing Thoroughbreds that fractures account for more than 35% of fatal fractures sustained during training of thoroughbred racehorses greater than 2 years of age. Ashley claimed that fractures account for around 64% of death. The harms are exaggerated by her use of the higher number in this case. And my third response is that Ashley states that there are 247 thoroughbred deaths that occurred in 2014 due to fatal injuries or heart attacks. She does not give information about how many thoroughbreds there were in 2014, nor does she give us information about the total number of deaths that year. According to Wikipedia's article, Thoroughbred, millions of thoroughbreds exist today, and more than 118,000 foals are registered each year worldwide. In comparison, 247 deaths from injuries or heart attacks are a small percentage of the horse population. Therefore, in conclusion, the real question isn't about if there is abuse. The question is how many people abuse and if this is standard. Thank you.
All right, Mary, the proposition is labeled and you give the secondary claims and then you give the secondary claims again, and they were complicated the first time they came through. They were complicated when we heard them from the advocate, and so it sounds like you're struggling to get through them a second time, and it takes up a lot of time to do that. So you need to do a little bit of editing on your arguments, maybe some picking and choosing on that, and then just get to the simplified points when you get to the body of the speech. Just remind us. So let's look at that first point that you talked about. And you can paraphrase it at that point. You don't, since you've said the claim already, I don't think there's anything wrong with paraphrasing what the claim is at that particular point. Get it down to something that's a little bit more manageable. One of the problems in the delivery as a consequence is because you're trying to be specific about the claim over and over and over again that you get caught up in reading and you stop talking to us. You're basically, just reading an essay out loud without telling us the arguments. You've got pretty straightforward arguments on this, and if you keep it simple, it would be fine. The horses are valuable and people would not negligently put them at risk. The drug treatments that are talking about are pretty standard, and it's very difficult to attribute any deaths to them. And the amount of harm that we're talking about here is incredibly small in comparison to the number of horses that we're dealing with. So this is not really a significant problem. That's the crux of your whole argument there, and that's 30 seconds to say it, and you're just taking a lot of time. I mean, it was an 8-minute speech that we were getting through, and it's only supposed to be 5, so it's already substantially over time. You've got a lot of responses on each of the points, and I especially like the fact that you went and found some evidence on a variety of those ones. The stuff about track conditions being canceled, about the number of horses that are participating in thoroughbred racing every year, about the legal status of the two drugs that we're talking about here. I think those things suggest that you've done a good job trying to diminish what appeared to be a very negative perception of the horse race industry and put it into a little bit more context, which I think is the right thing to do on this argument. All right, thank you.